Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call our meeting to order this evening. Do we have any agenda? No additions?
Tom did encounter a few questions about the solar RFP, so
Okay.
we could either make it its own agenda or just put it under town hall heating and cooling.
Why don't we put it under town hall heating and cooling? Put it right there. Okay, great. Lovely. Okay, so the first thing are the select board minutes for October 21st.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second? And Justin, just to let you know, you did not attend this, so, okay. Are there? I'll second. Does anyone notice anything? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes from October 21st?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to the pay orders of November 5th.
The revised ones in front of you, it just added Duchesne Electric.
Okay. Is this the amount for the 1,843,000? Okay. And the,
Sometimes people, you can make a note just so people understand. The education is in that one. You can
Okay.
even say that one amount if you do. It's just, so
Okay.
people really understand what's being spent where.
right, okay. So in this one, we have the added cost of Duchesne heating.
Yes.
Let's see where that is on this. Right there, Duchesne Electric
Right.
for $1,463.42 has been added, bringing the total amount to $1,843,199.
That number includes, the Mill River payment?
Yes, it looks like the Mill River payment was made.
Right.
And that was in the amount of $1,733,617.28. So that raises it considerably. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion? Does anybody want to question anything on this?
What does it mean by the OP of FY25 taxes? What does that mean?
That's if there's an adjustment on them.
Okay.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pay orders pass. Okay, moving on. I do not see a road commissioner. Will we have one this evening? do you
No.
know, Sandy? No. Okay, moving on. Honorable mentions, we would like to thank all the citizens who continue to donate to the Boy with the Boot Fund. This is a time for public comments. Is anyone here? I don't think so. I think everybody here is here for the agenda. So moving on, speaking of Boy with the Boot, we're going to move to the Boy with the Boot painting.
Hi, my name is Linda Arsenault, and I recently moved here. I live at the Wallingford house since August, and I just barely, moved here, and I didn't have a chance to, actually take pictures of the boy with the boot while he was in the fountain, because my son said, you should really paint that, and I was going to, and then the next day it was knocked over. So anyway, this is what we had talked about. We met around the fountain and they said something about making a sign and putting it in the fountain with something saying, I'll be back, and which that piece isn't done yet. But what we were looking for is a possibility if somebody could volunteer to make a sandwich sign to set it in so it can be put in the fountain. You know, what are your thoughts on that, or ideas?
What, does anyone have?
The biggest question I have is how do you want to weatherproof it? Because it's going to be up during like the harshest part of the year. In terms
Yeah,
of,
yeah. Well, because I don't have the funds for this, but if there was an auto body shop around that would be willing to put a clear coat on it, I think that would do it, because I've done that to a few pieces now, and it doesn't hurt the paint. I did put a couple coats of spray varnish on it, but for it to be out there, it really could use a clear coat.
yeah.
And I don't know if this side would need it or not. Probably both sides to protect it.
You know, Connie and Steve Berger over at Wallingford Maple, their kids have a house on Railroad Street, which is where their barn is that they do. They used to do furniture, and they used to do the signs also, and they would also do it with automotive clear coat. They would do it, so they might be somebody to contact to see if he still has the materials for that. Yeah, Connie and Steve Berger. I can get you the email. Yeah, let me write it down and then
I know my thoughts on this is that usually in the fall, the boy would be put away for the winter and wouldn't come back out until the weather is better. I thank you for painting the boy. I think it's a lovely painting. I don't know if it needs to go in the fountain.
Yeah, I'm open to,
Right.
you know.
I think our thoughts were that people would know that it was coming back, because so many people think that it's not coming back.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. It usually is, though, the practice with the boy, even if what happened hadn't occurred,
Wouldn't be there.
the boy wouldn't be there. The boy,
Right.
Freezing weather, you can't.
Right.
right, the boy is usually taken down, put away, and then brought back up in the spring. Maybe this is more appropriate to bring out maybe in the springtime? Just an idea.
So, and if it would go out there in the springtime, the sandwich thing to put it in
Yeah.
still would be probably a
Still
good
need to
idea.
happen. Right. What do other people think?
It's a beautiful painting.
Thank you, I
Have you
appreciate
heard
that.
anything about getting it fixed? Have you heard anything about getting it?
We're still working on finding out what's the
I
best.
think we're waiting
best
for
way to go.
estimates to come back. From what I heard, the estimates have not.
We've received one estimate, and we've actually had 4 different professionals look at it. One has given us an estimate, we're waiting for a second, and the other 2 declined. So we've had it, I mean, it's been a very active effort, but it's a very unusual piece, so it's not for, a lot of people are not either willing or qualified to fix it, so, you know, we do have one solid estimate though, and we're waiting for a second from a northern Vermont company, and who's very interested in doing it too, so.
Now, where do you donate to getting it fixed?
So you can donate to, we have a fund at Town Hall, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Sandy?
You can,
Yes.
yeah. Yep,
So
right in
we're also-
the, right in the town clerk's office,
Okay.
they're collecting
Yes.
money.
We were also thinking that we need funds to frame it, or regardless of where it goes. It's gonna go somewhere,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
whether it goes on the Wallingford house
Do you
or
have
on
an
the tree.
idea yet of how much in funds you would need?
We were hoping there would be a contractor or someone, builder in Wallingford that might say,
That
oh,
has some
I've got
scrap
scraps.
lumber and
It doesn't need a
put it
lot.
together.
Right.
No,
I might know someone.
who's the carpenter we used?
I don't know.
I don't know a carpenter, but I know that at my house right now, we've got scrap wood.
Yes.
We've got plenty of scrap wood right now, so, yeah. So we might be able to.
I mean, something like that, it would probably be, what's his name, Houghton?
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Lee?
Dean Moore.
Yeah, that would probably be, you know, they're more of a cabinet, finished cabinet
That's
maker
right.
than
They've got all the
than a
equipment
frame
to do
it,
it.
yeah,
But they
so.
have all the equipment.
They may be somebody to reach out to, just
Yeah.
to see what it'll cost to frame it. And they might be able to seal it and put it behind glass
It
and,
has to be specially treated wood, it can't just be scrap, whatever,
Right.
it needs to be
Okay.
weatherproof.
My feeling is that if we wanted to, like, so I wouldn't want this just to be temporary, like, if we put that out there, like, for that, it would be nice if we could then bring that into town hall. So making sure that the finish is nice and it's going to last, like,
Right.
that would be really nice, but I think for us to make a decision on that, we would need an estimate. So we need an estimate for a frame maker and then maybe from somebody to actually make the structure. And then we can come back and say whether or not we think we can devote those funds, because we still need to find out how much it's gonna cost to repair.
Exactly.
That would be I love the idea of it, but.
Yeah.
Could
And
we
also need the
approach
priority
Lee, would
is
you
paying
think?
for the repairs.
Right, the priority is paying for the water, yes.
Would you think we could approach Lee? We,
Lee?
you said Lee Holton, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, that might work. Also,
I remember before we talked, you also mentioned Dale Lincoln, right?
Oh, yeah.
We did talk about him, yes, but Lee sounds like he might have a little more finesse, maybe.
also.
He would be the carpenter.
I mean, for framing that in, I would
Yeah.
think Lee would be the guy to do that.
Right.
For building the frame, you know, around it to the support, I'm not sure Lee's the right one for that. I mean, he's a cabinet maker, but,
Right.
And he's retiring, I think, or he has.
yeah.
It might
It would
be,
have to be like 2 feet at least, so this sets 2 feet off the ground if it goes in
Yeah.
Right.
the fountain, so people can see it.
Yeah, so it almost like think of two structures, one being the actual frame that can then be removed from the actual stand itself.
Right.
Or even
Right.
if the frame was made something like this, or something where this could slide right in, maybe, slide it in and then.
or something like
Hopefully,
that.
just so that we can put it, if we wanted to find a spot in town hall or something like that to
Oh,
put it up,
yeah.
so that we would be able to keep it immortalized and then be able to have maybe a little plaque saying like, this was made when we lost the boy at the boot because of then it was, yeah.
The
Okay.
village market, the Wallingford market might be willing to display it too.
They don't have a lot of wall space.
Huh?
They don't have a lot of wall
No,
space.
but I mean, if it was a sandwich thing, put it outside, during the day,
Oh, that's true.
you know?
But then you're also putting in that closing it up,
Back in the
opening it up,
elements.
closing it up, opening up, and it's going to wear it out really quickly, especially something that's a little bit heavier than,
Yeah, that's true.
especially because it has that
With a
glass and stuff
painting,
like that,
yeah.
She's got wall space in there, I noticed. I went in there today.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that could hang on the wall somehow.
Yeah. I don't know, I didn't check, they got a lot of cabinets and things there.
Yeah.
Don Glendenning might be another one too.
Where's that?
Glendenning?
Oh,
Like-
cabinet maker,
Yeah.
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 That's
Right.
true, that's true.
Yeah, he does everything. He did the pavilion over at the lake.
If this was hung on the wall, it's possible that we could just have it like this.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what I've done with some pieces is put the, you know, those sticky things you can get that'll
Sure.
hold like 15, 20 pounds?
Yeah,
Put one here, and then put a wire through it, and then put the other piece on here, so it'll hold that wire on, and it doesn't, you don't have to put any nails in this.
mm-hmm.
And then that can, you know,
Hang
just
on the
hang on a
hook.
hook on the wall.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Oh.
So, and the other question I have is, when this happened, I think there was a surveillance camera at the library, and the one that was facing this way wasn't working, or somebody had one.
At the,
Well, the market,
the market.
Yeah, the market.
So, is there, you know, somebody that could look into that, make sure that's fixed?
This is actually something we've been discussing, and I think it's still being discussed of what we can do with cameras.
Yes.
Yeah, but you bring up a valid point, and we are discussing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't someone say they might possibly let, the Wallingford House might let a camera be placed
Yes.
on there?
Yes,
The
And we
management
appreciate
at
that.
Wallingford House told me they'd be willing to host a camera.
and we've heard the same thing,
Yes.
yep.
How do we go about doing it?
Oh,
I think we're still
Yeah.
looking
Oh,
into,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And they had another question, some of the other people at the Wallingford House, is the possibility of putting a Christmas tree in the fountain. Is that something we could do?
actually, that's not our phone
Right,
anyway. This is, we have a boy there because it's been there forever, but that's at the
Right.
Good Graces Wallingford House. And so
right.
So we would
They
have to
would-
talk to them.
they would be the one to talk to, I think,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
they have a Christmas tree at the library and
There's a
always
Christmas tree at the
had.
library.
But we were told that Wallingford House owns the property, but the fountain is owned by the town.
Oh, good.
I don't know if
So-
anybody really knows.
Oh, good.
One of the beautiful gray areas of our town. That'd be cool. I mean, if you had it like united with the tree lighting over at the library, that'd be pretty nice. And it might be a nice way to put something in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I would also consider if it becomes like too much craziness to try to get a frame that can work outside and everything else like that, having this somewhere prominent but out of the elements. And then you talked about making a sign, maybe doing a sign in that space might be a little bit easier to finagle versus having something like this.
It's true.
And more when you know what's going on.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Well, thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
and letting us know about this and showing us this beautiful painting.
Thank you.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Yeah, so we'll talk to, Monica.
Yeah.
And then that's the Connie and Steve's email.
Okay.
And so they're the ones that
Thank you very much.
they had the furniture shop,
Thank
but
you.
they had closed that down a few
Okay,
years ago.
so if it were to go outside, then those would be the ones that.
I would ask them just
Yeah.
because they've done a lot of stuff for the town and I'm sure that they would be willing to at least talk to it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye. You too.
Okay, moving on. We are at the Rutland Regional Planning Commission dues. So Sandy, does everybody have this packet?
Yeah, it was in there.
Devin, wonderful. So if you look at this packet, you will see that they're changing the way that that membership dues are being charged from a flat rate to a more equitable per capita rate. And if you look down, you'll find Wallingford on there. And you'll see what their proposed rate is. And then you can see what the rate is at different values. And within this is, so there's membership dues compared to other RPCs, plus there is the annual cost comparison. And then there's a very complete rundown as to what the change is, what the new structure is, the rationale, the benefits, supporting documentation, and their conclusion. So the question is do we approve the dues for the fiscal year 26 budget?
Trying to think on how I can word this question or statement. Be politically correct.
What options do we have?
I was thinking.
Well, I guess my question is, what does the Regional Planning Commission do for us for nothing?
Like, if we didn't contribute to it at all, what would they do, or?
In other words, everything that I know of that they've done for us, we've had to pay a fee for them to do it. Whether it's a grant, administrating a grant,
Right.
or the sidewalk grant, for instance.
Yeah.
It's kind of a,
But I don't
I
think,
grumble about that.
I'm not sure we paid a fee to RPC for that though.
They're administering they're the administrator of the grant for the sidewalk.
Right.
We're paying them $37,000
Right.
to be the project manager / administrator of that grant.
Okay.
We also paid them when they got the grant for the block. We paid them a fee to be the administrator of that. So my question is, what are we getting? They've done maps for us in the past. We've had to pay for the maps, I believe.
We just got a set of new maps for them, for the
Yeah.
Wallingford Rescue for free. Wallingford Rescue wanted all the streets so that drivers couldn't find out they're free.
Right.
They do grants and aid administration free. The state used to pay, when the state passed municipal road general permit, the state used to pay our RPCs to help before and after on all these grants and road, all the paperwork before and after every one of these road projects. The state took that away they took the funding away, and Rutland Regional is continuing to do it. So when we have a project, when we get like $35,000 to go do a grants and aid project, usually Stephanie meets with Charlie and we go out for several hours. She writes up all the paperwork on it. This is at post funding. They don't get the funding to do it anymore, and they're still gonna do that. And they do a lot of a lot of those little things.
Yeah, I guess that was my question.
Yeah.
Everything you see up front, they're billing us for, or they're getting a fee for, and not really billing us.
So on those types of things, like the sidewalk, that's gonna be over 5 years too.
Right.
And if we had to hire a project manager, not our RPC, I can't imagine what the cost of that would be.
And when RPCs helped us when we were thinking about what kind of project we could do and where we should do it and all that, RPC I think was very,
They came out, and you were there.
yes, exactly.
With Devin, we all walked all the sidewalks to figure it out, and they helped us with the grant
They
writing.
helped us focus, they helped us decide what would be feasible, what we should go for, what maybe we wanted to wait for later, and I don't think we were
And I'll tell you, if,
charged with it.
and we're on recording, if the state would stop taking stuff away from them, they would even be doing more. For years and years, every spring, we're required to do a local emergency management plan.
Yes.
At the LEMP that you all have to sign, and we
Yes.
have to submit, and it takes into account all of these buildings,
Yes.
and the state has now taken that away from this Rutland Regional, so now somehow we're gonna have to do that without their help. They were doing that at no extra charge. There's a lot of things that they do. Now that instead of Rutland Regional, and I'm not sure why it's been taken away, and they're going to go back up the legislature and see if it can get, because they're not charging any of us for that. So now there's gonna be one person that's gonna do all of central Vermont, help all these towns in central Vermont with their local emergency management plan. And it's a required document. You have to submit it every spring. And, those are the types of things that Rutland Regional has been doing at no cost to us.
And also included on page 3 of the letter, in recent years, the RPC has moved away from charging towns directly for services, often at charge only when grant funds are available to support town projects. The new per capita structure would allow us to expand capacity at no additional cost to towns, supporting crucial work such as town plan updates that are no longer funded by grants.
And that, I'm glad you mentioned that because Erica can tell you, now our town plan is due, I think in 26. And usually you get an $8,000 or $9,000 grant to help, to hire someone to help you. Now that money's gone, you have to do it on your own, but Rutland Regional will continue to help with the plan and they're not gonna get paid for it anymore. Usually we would pay them because there's just not entities out there to do these other things. They're gonna, but for Mark's point, we do hire them too. Like, we got the grant for the state requires a new road erosion inventory by 2027. Rutland Region was the only one that bid on it, so we gave it to them recently.
And I guess if you think about like if their total for all this is $60,000 that they're hoping to bring in for all the work they're doing and all the towns that they're working with, that's barely one person's salary for a year, and they have multiple people that work for them. So it doesn't seem like it's a bummer that we have to add $1,200 to what we always have as a tight budget, but like.
You decided to do it this year on per capita then?
Yes.
No, I'm saying, but like, it's 1,000, and then we're going up to 2219, so like,
Yes.
just the idea of, it's it's a $1,200, which is not an insignificant amount of money.
19, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, yeah. Yeah, so $1,129 more than what we paid
Yes.
last time.
So is this the 25-26 budget, this year, this coming budget, or is this the following budget?
Fiscal
This would
year,
be the one that the voters would vote on in March.
yes,
Okay.
26.
for town
So it'll be
meeting.
25-26 budget.
That's right.
Yes. Yep,
Yeah, so we're not trying to find money that we don't
No.
have already allocated.
Exactly.
Okay.
exactly. So do we need a motion for this? Okay.
Well, I mean, you can by consensus agree now
Okay.
that you want to put it in the budget as you move forward with the budget.
And then I'll do
Eventually, in January, you'll vote on the whole budget.
Yeah.
So, is there consensus on this?
Pretty good,
Okay.
Sure.
close enough.
Especially just because if with that system, because we're in that kind of sweet spot of that 1,000 to 2,500 people, like there are some towns that are paying a tremendous amount more.
Yes.
And we're not, yeah, like you look like Brandon, like going up from 1,000 to 4,000 or
Well, it's
Castleton even.
also
Rutland City.
interesting that, I mean, Mount Tabor and Rutland City should not be saying the same $1,000.
Right,
Right, exactly.
Little more than a third of the town is in a national forest, which they plan themselves, so. We
Yeah.
don't have to have, that much planning help.
So as much as it'll be a increase, we're kind of lucky.
yeah.
Yeah, yep. Okay, town hall heating and cooling.
You're
Is
on.
that for me?
Yeah, that's you. I
I
put
was looking
that,
forward to hearing the update myself. So
well, no, I put that on there without any specific item to be addressed, but just in case something came up.
So the last meeting, you were heading out
Yes,
so I wasn't sure whether you contacted Rocky, so I left a
I
message.
did,
figured
I
you
did.
probably
I told him when
had.
I got back, I would,
Yeah.
draft an agreement for him.
So I just shot him a voicemail, just letting him know that he had, just in case he had it.
Yes.
And then I just was kind of thinking things would move along at that point, but.
Right, so I'll send,
In fact, before I came in tonight, I went back to look and see if there was any movement back there, and I didn't see anything, but.
so I'm gonna put out send him a grant, or a contract
Okay.
tomorrow, so we'll get that signed.
He never
and
called
then-
me back, so I figured he was
Okay.
set, but.
But you said you had questions from Solar.
Yeah, so I've kind of been focused on the solar here, so we've had
Okay.
a lot of activity on
Okay.
that. I can update you on that. And did you, just before we leave the other, do you want me to contact Bill and see where we're at on that, or do you want to?
No, I can.
Okay.
He submitted everything, so he's
Okay.
ready to go, and I'll
Okay.
just,
All right, so the RFP went out the next day after you guys approved it, and there's been a lot of interest. We've had about, like, I think 5 different companies have expressed interest in it. So we've had several meetings at the town garage site last week. And there's a lot of questions that have been generated, but they're basically around the buildings themselves, around two areas. So maybe what I can do is just kind of summarize what they've, kind of the pros and the cons of using the garage itself versus the salt shed, which I think or the sand shed.
Sand shed.
Which is the big one. Which we kind of kicked around here in the select board before we went out. And then I think depending on, then there's been some other recommendations as well as to how we could move forward. And depending on what you would like to do there, that may actually eliminate some of the questions, the more detailed questions. We may not have to go through those. But so in general, the main concern that some of these installers have when they see the garage is the roof itself, the construction of the roof. So it's a rubber roof that's on a pitch. So most of the rubber roofs, I guess, are flat roofs. And then the other thing is that it's a little bit difficult to see what the construction is of itself. So in talking with Steve and Charlie down there, my understanding, I may get this wrong, is that you got the rubber, there's like a foam board underneath that, there's I guess some structural pieces, and then there's spray foam on the inside. They can't see it, but it's difficult to get at it to see it without pulling it apart. Steve did point out that there's some ventilation on the side of the building that they could potentially pull one of those things off and get a better look of what's inside. Some of the concerns are that the roof, I don't know when that was done. You may know, Sandy, when that roof was replaced last. But some of the concerns are, well, the main concern is that with that roof the way it is, where they drill in to secure the panels, they have to go back and seal that. So one person, actually the person who gave us the estimate back in February on the garage, they had $1,400 of their estimate was set aside for the sealing part, just going back and sealing those holes. And then another person I talked to said it would be about $100 a hole. So I guess there's about 140 holes in there. So one consideration was someone had suggested, based on the age of that roof, you wouldn't want to put panels on it, and then at some point the roof reaches its limit and you got to take the panels off in order to fix the roof. So one consideration would be repair the roof now and put something on there that's more amenable to the solar panels, even if you just did the east-facing side. So most of the people believe that the east-facing side would be adequate to get what we're after, which is around the 22 kilowatts. I did talk to Green Mountain Power today too, because I was just a little concerned about with this. So just recall that we're trying to do the remote or net metering.
Yeah.
Which, you have all the panels in one location and you support multiple buildings. That's being phased out at the end of the calendar year. We have to get our CPG in. Once we do though, then I asked, if we want to expand down the road, can we do that once this program expires? They confirmed that we can.
Oh, great.
So with that being the case, at the 22 kilowatts, they're convinced that we can get that just on the east side. So they said if you wanted to think about replacing the roof, you could, depending on how you want to go about it, you could just replace the east side. So that's just some of the considerations. Some people were asking, there was a lot of questions about the sand shed because they saw it as a better option than the building itself. But there are people who are willing to.
And they looked at it?
Yeah, they looked at it. So we'll get into that, some of that. So basically, so the concerns with as I said, the sand shed would not require, you wouldn't have to go back and reseal everything. Right? Because it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of water in on your sand. So that would be lower cost. Also, you would need, it's south facing, so you would need less panels to get the same power.
Okay.
So that would save money as well.
And weight,
And what?
and weight too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Less weight.
So less
and-
panels and weight.
Yeah, so less panels, less cost associated with the
Is
wholesaling.
there a downside to this?
There is some downsides. The downsides are, as Mark pointed out, so there is some damage in the structure itself. My understanding, again, talking to Steve and Charlie, I got a good education this past week, is that some of those broken trusses happened very early on when the shed was first built, and they learned quickly how they could work in there without breaking the trusses. So some of them were not repaired. But it has been cabled. My understanding is that was done also very early on, shortly after it was built, because when they put the boards on the side and then loaded the sand in there, it started pushing, and the poles started pushing out, and then they cabled it. And the good news is it stopped it, so it hasn't moved since they've cabled it. So that's many years. I forget exactly when, was it around 2000 they did that? I don't know, that was probably maybe before you.
Way before me, but yeah, it's been a long time.
Even longer than that,
Yeah.
back in the 90s. So that's the good news. But we would require, before we put panels on that, it would require an engineering assessment and likely at least some repairs, right? You're gonna wanna repair the trusses that are broken at a minimum, I would think. And then the other less important factor would be that you would need to do a trench from the sand shed to the utility pole, which is right at the front corner of the garage. So that's a minor expense. Someone suggested to me that, actually it's the same company who we got the bid on the first time, said that one option that we could consider is that we simply hire them as a consultant to get the CPG filed for us. Okay, so that would cost $100. What's that?
To get what?
The certificate of public good,
Okay.
or CPG, so that's really the key.
Before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the key driver. We need to, in order to get this type of system, we need to get that submitted before the end of the year. So we could hire them.
How much?
And it would be a $100 consulting fee and a $150 submission fee. So basically, $250, we'd be paying that anyway. If we kept it as part of the RFP, we'd be paying, whoever bids on it, they would just add that into their costs.
Yeah.
Right. The nice thing about it is that it kind of it simplifies the RFP, which we can do tomorrow, depending on how the discussion goes tonight.
Okay.
The other suggestion, that he had was that he works with a structural engineer that he said he could potentially get them to come in, could take the structural engineering for the sand shed. Well, it's not even in the RFP now, it's basically focused on the garage, but if we want to consider that shed, and I would, based on all the discussions that I've had with everybody, I think it would be a good idea to consider that. He was saying that we could take that engineering component, rather than adding that to the RFP, we take that and do that separately as well. And he gave me a range for that one. At first he said it would be, where is it? $1,600. And then he came back to me later and said, well, he found another reference point for another building that was an older, larger metal building he charged $2,300 for. So somewhere in that range, around $2,000 roughly, you could have the engineering assessment with the repair recommendations and a cost. So that would then give us,
So assessment and recommendations?
yeah, so for around $2,000. So what that could do for us is give us the cost estimate of the two buildings. But in the meantime, it could simplify the RFP process so that we could rev the RFP tomorrow to now say, okay, you can bid on the garage, you can bid on the sand shed, or both, right? They could bid, it'd be one or the other, but they could bid on both if they wanted to. But we go with the assumption that the CPG is not required as part of the RFP, and the town, basically we will guarantee not guarantee, but we will take on responsibility for making sure that the sand shed is structurally sound to support the weight of the array. So we'll do that offline through this work with them.
And take the CPG part out of the RFP?
Yeah, so the CPG would go away, and they would have the option to bid on the building or the sand shed. Now, the only question with other clarification would be if we wanted to entertain, I don't know where you're at on thinking about the roof. So it would be a different cost if there was, I mean, obviously, the ideal roof for solar installation is standing seam. Of course, that's the most expensive as well. But that would be, you could install that, what's there, and then they would just clip it onto the standing seam panels. That's the way ours are done. So that's an option. The other thing we could do is, if we go and do the RFP or the CPG separately, it could buy us a little bit more time to consider whether we wanted to do that. Or we could just move forward with the RFP as it is and say, give it to us, give us your estimates, assuming that the garage is what it is, and then give us your estimates, assuming that the sand shed will be structurally sound.
I'd be very curious if our insurance rates would go up if we had the panels on the sand shed. Just because of the liability of, if somebody knocked into one of the support beams, you're not just taking down a relatively light ceiling, or roof, you're taking down a whole set of 10,000 pound panels, or however heavy they are. Just, I wonder about that factor.
Yeah, I think they're fairly light. The one guy said,
Okay.
they climb up ladders with them. So,
Okay.
I don't, we can find out. We can try to do
Or
that.
just if something happened where something got knocked off and then the panel came off, there's no chance of that except for force majeure and everything else like that with the building, versus this where it's human error could easily kind of knock out a
It's a
support
good question. That's something we could look into while we're, rather than ruling it out.
Right.
now.
No, yeah, I don't want to rule it out, but I
Open,
like
get the
it.
bids on both,
Yeah,
and then in the meantime, we'll look into that so that we can understand the added costs there to consider when we look at it.
So we have a few things to consider here. What are people's thoughts on this?
There's no place on the ground to put them. Too tight.
Oh, you mean at the town garage?
Yeah.
We're short on room as it is, let alone.
There was.
So we're short on room, they're short on room down there as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing behind the sand shed between the tracks over there.
So there, I looked back in there. My understanding is that kind of the property line kind of runs on an angle back in there. And there's one of the other questions that I haven't gotten to yet was about, there are 2 trees there at the southeast corner of the sand shed that ideally would be taken down. If you decide, no, we're not going to take them down, they would just shift the panels towards the other end
I don't know, take them down.
of the roof.
Tree guy.
I'm generally a tree guy too, but these are pretty rough looking
They're off
trees.
the knees.
And they're, if they're blocking the solar, so.
We've done a lot of trees for solar panels.
Yeah.
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 Used to be satellite dishes. No more cats.
I think it makes sense to have both options open, especially because I feel like if you can structurally upgrade that roof so that it would hold it and also would add to the structure itself for years to come, that'd be great, and also be a lot easier to do it there. And with the south facing, and also if we wanted to expand, maybe then also thinking about making sure that the estimates say, oh, what if we, for the structure part of that, what if we were able to expand that entire roof to solar cells? So that sorry, my brain is not working with my mouth today. So right now we're thinking about a smaller panel because that's all we need right now to sustain the town. If we're thinking about this as we're doing these structural changes or repairs to it, what if we thought about that structural repair actually supporting more weight or more panels in the future, so that would be an easy way to expand that space.
So I think that's just a discussion with the structural engineer, and we
Right.
would say, so our requirements that we communicate to the structural engineer, I think would be, what do we need to do to this building so that the entire south-facing side
Would be-
will be covered by the panels.
Yes.
Even though we're not planning on doing that.
Yeah, that was my idea, just
Yeah,
doing
because-
that so that we have
Yeah, I
that
think that makes
all
sense.
squared, yeah.
We don't anticipate, so we have some buffer in the 22, we have some buffer relative to what we think we're gonna use, or what we've used in the past, plus the anticipated heat pumps. But then down the road, I mean, who knows, EV chargers down the road somewhere, and, what else comes along, who knows? So it would be nice to have that capability. And I know there was some discussion about expanding that sand shed, and I realized that, in talking to Steve, that it'd probably be expanded towards the road.
Well, one of the proposals is to take down the sand shed and the salt shed
Combine
and
them.
combine them into one building and rebuild it. Well,
Yeah.
if that's the case, panels on that roof are far and few, or it can't happen.
Right.
Or we'll be rebuilding them in a year and,
So we do have the flexibility, with this program, we do have the flexibility it would be labor. So I did talk to the one guy about that, if we needed to do that. He said it would be labor to take them down and put them back up. So.
but why would we reinforce a roof to hold the panels?
Oh,
When we're
yeah,
gonna
so
tear-
we're-
when we're gonna tear that roof off?
Yeah,
Tear the building down.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think-
that's
Yeah.
kinda a wasted money.
Yeah, but once you've reinforced that, do you really need to do it then? If you can just expand it lengthwise to increase your capacity, what would be the driver to completely redo it at that point?
Well, like I said, it's, from what I've seen and heard, it's probably structurally sound, but it's not, with a big loader, it's not very easy and easy to work in.
Okay, so you would go up.
It's gonna have to go up, out, change the pitch of the roof. Phil had
yeah.
an idea on, on how to do it, so, but it needs to, I don't know if it needs to grow in width, but it definitely needs to grow in height and change the ceiling to, the roof to
Yeah.
a different style.
The impression I had from the gentleman that I was talking to about that was that the cost is primarily in the panels. So the labor of putting them up and taking them down. So if we did that, we own the array at that point, right? And we have the rights through the program to do the remote net metering at that point. So we have the flexibility if we decide. I hear what you're saying. Depending on how much it costs to reinforce it,
Right.
right? That's sunk cost at that point that you would lose if you decide to change your shed.
If we get to CPG, what is the time frame for that
that's what I was
to
thinking.
utilize?
So
that?
it is in the RFP, we wrote, I think it was June or July, end of June or July, but we would have 12 months from when the CPG goes in. So it'd be basically the calendar year next year.
I don't know, it depends, it totally depends on,
The vendor.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had just listening to you go through, I had a couple of questions. When they're charging to seal the roof, trying to think again, politically correct here. Why would,
We wouldn't want to do it because then
well,
if
no,
something
no,
happens,
it's-
we're not
no,
liable.
It's, my question is more of, why isn't that a given? If you're gonna drill a hole in my roof,
Yeah.
why aren't you gonna seal my roof? You follow me? I mean, that shouldn't even be, it shouldn't even be a moot point, it shouldn't even be a discussion. You're gonna put a hole in my roof, oh, you're gonna seal it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the salt shed, you're gonna put a hole in the roof, yeah, we can afford some water, but you're still gonna seal that roof, or the sand shed, I should say. So, sealing of the roof shouldn't even be a discussion to have as a separate line item on an estimate. It should be included, I would think.
So in the one that the estimate that we got in February from Green Earth Energy, it was included. So he backed it out in order to tell me how much of that estimate, it was like 79,000, and then with the tax credit, it was like 55.
Right,
Right, so of that, a fairly small percentage of it was sealing of the roof.
yeah.
So it came up as a concern, and they said, the people that I talked to said you wouldn't need to do it on the sand shed. You wouldn't take the expense of sealing something that's not necessary. It rains in from the side on the sand, it goes out in the road. There's no need to do it, unless you're trying to protect the structure underneath somehow, like a little bit of moisture that will get through I don't think it would be an issue. So they were just pointing it out as a cost consideration for us. And then also beyond the ceiling of the rubber roof, there were some concerns, as I mentioned, about just not knowing what we're dealing with within that roof.
Right.
On the other roof,
Garage,
right,
garage,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, the sand shed, the assumption would be, we'd have a structural engineer, and the result of the structural engineer analysis may be, you don't wanna do it.
Right.
Right? If
Right.
the cost, you can do anything for a cost, right? So, but they'll tell us what that cost is, and we may say, thank you very much for your estimates on the sand shed, the engineering analysis came back, it's cost prohibitive, we have to go with the garage.
So,
But if you are considering the sand shed, it would probably be a good idea to take this engineering assessment on ourselves, because it just, if all the individual bidders did it, we might lose some bidders, and then also, it's gonna be very difficult to compare apples to apples when you're in the bid review process, because, what were all the assumptions that went into it, and
right.
and what exactly is covered.
Can we get an extension, or can we get an extension on the CPG? In other words, we get a CPG, it's good for 12 months or calendar year. Can we get an extension?
So what I've heard in the discussions that I've had is that they have been extended. Okay, I don't think we could get one now, but once we have it,
Yes.
and we have something in motion, and it's getting to the point where, hey, we may not hit this date,
Right.
then I think we can get it. But you can't go in and say, okay, we would like 18 months on this.
Well, I agree, so where I'm going with this is, if we get a CPG now, the roof say we go with the garage, the roof on the garage needs to be replaced. We cannot find a vendor or someone to replace that roof within the next, say, calendar year.
Yeah.
So we can't put panels on that roof for at least a calendar year. Can we extend that CPG to get the roof replaced? And, nothing moves fast nowadays, so to get somebody to give us an estimate on replacing the roof, the RFP process, the bid process, the whole thing. So now we're into it for 2 or 3 months. I wouldn't do it during the winter, so now you're shooting for, May, June timeframe to get the RFP out to replace the roof. So now we're looking at May, June, we're looking at July, maybe August to start putting the roof on if they're available. They may not be available until September, November, September, October in the fall. Now we're pushing the solar panels either the middle of the winter or next year. Now we're pushing towards the end of that calendar year to get it done. And that's, I'm not trying to look at worst case, but that's kind of reasonable thinking. And the same thing with the salt.
Need replacing?
Well, we don't know. If it does, I don't know how long it's been up there.
Right.
And if it does need to be replaced before you put the panels on, would be the time to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
But again,
Especially if it eliminates some concerns related to putting the panels on.
right. And the same thing with the sand shed. If we decide to go with the sand shed, we're going to repair the sand shed at some point.
Right.
How long is it going to take? Or if we replace that building and raise it and change it around, when will that take place? Will it be in next year's budget or the year after's budget? So,
Right.
I hate to put panels up and then take all the panels back down
Yeah.
and then put the panels back up.
But I almost wonder though because we're again, it's like one of those things where we circle around something because we don't always have all the information. Like I think we need to have almost that. I think getting the CPG and somehow making sure that they get it so that it's to December 31st, 2024. Like that's when it gets actually checked off.
Right, no, yeah,
so that we have the full year.
And I agree, but
Yeah,
like I said,
but then getting an actual structural idea of, because if we get an actual assessment saying that needs to get repaired before anything can happen, then we say, oh, we're going to then think about investing lengthwise and expanding it. Because if we're going to be working on that it might be more cost effective to do both at the same time.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So it's more about getting all the information we possibly can now, as soon as we possibly can, and then making that big decision of,
Yeah.
are we gonna expand this, or are we just gonna structurally fix this for
And
now?
I have no problems on getting the CPG now, and
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, spending the money to get the engineering done. But again, if they're expandable, you know, we can push it out, yes.
Right.
But if that can't be pushed out, and we gotta scramble to have it done in a year, in the next calendar year, how confident do you feel that that can happen?
Well, I mean, that is the
I mean,
the amount
but
of
that's-
factors that go into that are just
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at, so.
Yeah.
I just, knowing the way, you know, the process happens.
So one thing we could do is, when we hire the structural engineer to do the assessment on the sand shed, we could include as a scope item on that, an assessment of the garage roof as well. So do a full analysis of the sand shed, tell us what it would be required to make it structurally sound to support this array, full roof for what
Yeah.
you need. And then also, while you're there, do an assessment of the garage roof.
Right.
You'll probably pull those side
Yeah.
vents off and look and see what's underneath, and get up on the roof and look at the membrane and everything. And then he can provide us as an independent person, an assessment of, okay, this is how long your roof will last. This is what it would cost
Right.
to repair it this way. This is what it would cost to put standing seam on it. And then, in the meantime, we can, I mean, the most important thing is getting the CPG in by the end of the year, because that costs $250 and it gives you flexibility, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then we can continue to move forward in a reasonable way, and if, like you're pointing out, Mark, a lot of these things, these hurdles will pop up in front of us, and we'll have to clear them one at a time. The good news, the only good thing that I can say is that, in my discussions with folks at GMP and Efficiency Vermont, there have been situations where CPGs have been extended, but it's been more of those cases where it's been approved already, you're active trying to get it done, and something has come up that's beyond your control. That's what, so, but don't,
Right.
it's considered on a case-by-case basis. I can't sit here tonight and say, hey, don't worry about it.
No, but my biggest question was, can they be? Only because I can foresee, you know,
Yeah.
hurdles
My
that are
impression
gonna
is that
take some time.
They have been
Okay.
extended.
And the only other question is, you said this is gonna be about 55,000?
Well, that was the estimate back in February. That's
All right.
after the tax credit.
Yeah, okay.
And on the garage roof.
That was on the.
So what
garage roof.
did you run a calculation on what the payback would be? How many, I'd say years it's gonna take, or months?
So the individual, when they do the bids, they'll include that as part of it. So it all depend on, I mean, it's gonna be a different number if you're doing it on the sand shed versus on the garage.
Right.
The sand shed's gonna be less expensive. I mean, we can, you know, for purposes of calculating the payback, you can include the engineering costs as part of the sand shed. But if we're talking about doing the engineering for
Right.
the garage too, maybe that's just separate.
Right.
But it'll be less for the sand shed because you use less panels.
Right.
You get.
And the only reason, and I'm not sure where it falls, but, you know, looking at some of these for my own use, you know, when you run a 20-year payback and your panel is only good for 20 years, you're kind of
Yeah.
not really gaining anything out of putting solar panels on your house. That's so, in other words, is it got a 10-year payback, you know, or that type of, 10 years, you know, when you got a 20-year panel, great, then it's worth the investment, you know, looking forward for the town down the road.
Right.
If it's got a 20-year payback, and the panels are good for 20 years,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of benefit long-term other than being green for the town to do this. Am I making sense?
You are, I think, the general sense that I get is these are 25-year assets for the most part. They'll define that when in the bids, maybe they
Right.
have to use different panels, I don't know. But in terms of the payback, it's based on, it's site-specific. So the assessment that you had done, it all depends on how your roof is oriented versus where the sun is and
Right,
all that.
right.
So it's gonna be site dependent. So I think we'll have that as part of
Okay.
part of the bids.
Right.
And that can,
Yeah.
we'll have that information based on
Yeah,
the
just-
specifics of what they're proposing.
I'm trying to look out into the future. It's great we can make these decisions to help us today.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, as we move forward for the next 20 years,
Yeah.
some of us probably won't be around
Yeah.
for the next generation that has to deal with this again. So I'm just kind of forward thinking, you know, what are the possibilities? Not being negative, but,
Yeah.
you know, I want to make sure that 20 years, you know, we're still good.
Yeah.
I wonder in that case is that how do you balance that? Because the 22 gigawatts or kilowatts? Kilowatts. The 22 kilowatts that's what we actually need as a town to be able to run our electric, right? That's the idea behind that.
So we've had, based on our past bills, it's
Right.
roughly 18,000 on average a year.
Okay.
We're installing heat pumps here, so we had.
Right, that's gonna go up for
Yeah,
sure.
and just by chance, the 22 is what Green Earth Energy proposed based
For
on
that,
their assessment
right.
for the garage
Right.
initially. So the people that I talked to, some of it may just be that the panels are constantly improving in efficiency.
Right.
But people this time around are saying that it's probably not gonna take as many panels because they're just putting it on either the one side or either building.
But I wonder about like, it's that, do you invest in a little bit more, like a bigger bite at first with, like, if we are able to do, say, like, perfect scenario, we're able to do it in the sand shed because we have south facing. If we're able to add a little bit beyond our capacity, we're going to start recouping that money back quicker from Green Mountain Power.
No, it'd be just
No?
the opposite.
It would be the
I think
opposite?
just the opposite, yeah. So if you don't wanna purchase a lot of extra capacity you can't use because the net metering, you have like 1 year to utilize it. Right, so you build your buffer over the summer, you start to deplete it over the winter, and if you don't use it up, so you can't, you're not gonna just,
Can't bank it.
Because I thought it was the idea of like when you're producing more, you're putting it back into the grid, then they pay you for that extra that you're not utilizing. That's what I thought.
you
So I'm incorrect.
you get a buffer account that you then draw down when you're producing less later in the year.
Okay.
So we're not gonna become a
Right.
electric producer for Green Mountain Power and start becoming cash flow positive with our solar panels. We're gonna, so to Mark's question
yeah.
about the payback period will be shorter if we're as close as possible to what we utilize, right? Not under, we wanna be at.
Yeah, at or slightly just,
Slightly above.
Okay.
That's why.
they
so-
talk 80, I think it's always been like 80% when you design a network or a power grid. You always design it for 20% over your usage.
Okay.
So you always are running at an 80% max load.
Okay.
So when you do a house when you calculate your house, you always calculate it. So I think I'm going to use 200 amps on a regular basis. Then you put in I'm going to use 220 for instance. You put a 220 amp breaker. You don't do that, but so you never max out your usage at 100%. You're always running at 80%. That's almost the same thing for anything you do, telecom or whatever. When they buy bandwidth, they do it. They run at 80%, not thinking that it gives you 20% buffer basically
Right.
for an overage.
I just didn't understand that because I thought if you have more, you're producing more and you're putting that back into the grid, then that would start to pay down our debt more quickly than if we had just the
You lose
right
it,
amount.
if you don't use it in a year, you lose it. But to your point,
Okay.
if we anticipated a significant jump in our usage in the next couple of years, then you'd have to do that analysis and say, okay, it may make sense just to save the labor and get it all, buy more panels now, a larger purchase of panels, get them all installed at one time, and not have to incur another install later, then it might, you're losing a little bit for a year, but then when your usage jumps up, then you're already covered. So that, in that case, it's going to pay for itself.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that the next big burn is going to be EV chargers at some point. So I don't think that's on anybody's radar for the next, So maybe we stick with the 22,
Yeah.
and I think the payback will be shorter.
Right. Yeah, I'm just, like I said, if it takes 20 years to pay it back, yes, the money is, I'm gonna say, it's not free money, but, it's the ARPA funds that are getting used to do this. It's great, but if we were taking money from the taxpayers and putting it towards this project, in other words, we were gonna finance this over a 20-year period, we wanna make sure it.
Right.
You gotta look at it the same way. We got the money to do it, but at the same time,
For something else.
that could go anywhere, it could sit there and use it, other purposes. So we wanna make sure that it's, pays for itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're taking away the electric bills as soon as they're up.
Right.
Okay,
And if it
so
gets us our salt, our
we
sand
need
shed.
to,
Yeah,
I think, make a couple decisions.
Yes, I think just to maybe, the CPG, are we okay taking that?
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
So how are we with the CPG? Do I want to go ahead and put the 250
I
towards
think
that?
I think we go
Yes.
forward.
Yeah, so that's a definite forward. What about the structural engineering?
We probably ought to do that just for our,
Just for our.
And include both structures?
And for anything,
Yeah,
that could be
Yeah.
what helps
Yes,
us.
include both structures.
yes.
Yes, exactly.
You want
yeah.
to set an amount on that up to,
What, so
Well, you were
we thought
talking
of-
2,300 or something?
what-
That was 16 to 23 is
So
the,
do we want to set a cap of 23 or do we want to set a different cap?
so those were both on one structure, but, so I don't
One
know.
structure, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know what,
So if we do both, we don't have really a figure for that.
we don't have a figure for two things because I wasn't talking to them about that, but I mean, you could, I don't know,
Can we,
three.
can we cap it at 3?
Yeah.
That's what I was
Cap
kind
at
of,
3?
3 or 3,500,
Sounds good.
So which one, 3 or 35?
I'm not sure if 3 is gonna cover 2 structures to do a structural
Do we want to say
engineering to it.
35?
Yes.
35,
Yeah.
Okay,
do this.
35.
Get it done.
Going once, going twice.
Sold.
Sold.
Taking down the 2 trees, did I hear a yes on that? We can do that if it
Taking
goes on to
down?
the sand shed.
You have to ask the tree warden.
So can we ask the tree ward?
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
not on the tree warden.
Yeah, no.
As long as they're on our property.
They are on our, yes.
Okay, cool.
Well, Steve said they were.
Oh,
Maybe make sure of that before.
We'll confirm
So
that.
we'll
Yes,
confirm
yeah.
that they're on our property.
So if we can confirm on that, that'd be
Yes,
great.
yeah.
And
Okay.
of course, we wouldn't
That
take them
will
down.
come out of the tree budget.
Of course, we wouldn't do it unless the decision is to put up. But
Right.
for purposes of
Exactly.
communicating to the folks who are doing the RF, who are doing the bid,
Yes.
we'll say yes, assume that the trees will be taken away.
And that's a structural survey of the salt shed, not the, or the sand shed, not the salt shed.
Yep,
Right.
and I probably said.
Yeah, the salt shed.
Yeah,
Yes.
sand.
Yes, yes, yes.
The salt shed's cooked, right?
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much.
Yep,
You won't put anything on that roof.
nope.
And
Okay.
then in terms of then revising the RFP tomorrow, so there were a lot of other questions about the specifics about what's in the roof of the garage. I think we'll set those aside, so
Right.
we're gonna get those answers as part of this
Exactly.
analysis.
Yes,
So in terms of revising the RFP for tomorrow, we'll communicate that the CPG is taken out and assume structural integrity on the sand shed to support the weight. And for now, assume the garage roof as it is,
right,
correct?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
yep,
And then get bids, they can put a bid in on both if they like. If they only feel
Yes.
comfortable with one or the other, they can bid and we'll assess what we have at that
sounds
time.
good.
And then we'll try to get the results back from the structural engineer, if we can do it, turn it around in a couple of weeks. But the key is we get the CPG in,
The CPG,
then gives us a little bit of time to think.
yes. Yep. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
It's never easy, is it?
No, it's not. Thank you, though.
Thank you very much, Tom, thank you.
Okay. No parking signs at Stone Meadow. The sheriff has recommended and the constable has agreed that no parking signs should be posted at Stone Meadow prohibiting parking after dark, maybe 9 PM.
Why?
That-
Why?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
But because there's the no parking, because they're noticing a lot of no park cars down there, a lot of hanging out down there, and they don't have any authority to even question them if there's not signs up there.
Is
Oh.
there something going on though? Wrong.
What's wrong with?
It's just, I mean.
Because
it
people
was-
like to go look at the stars down
Right.
there.
I mean, you could say no. There's just, the deputy asked me about it, and then separately the
So
constable
what
did,
is
so.
it, the youth, they think there's hanky-panky going on or what?
I've been by there numerous times where there's been cars parked in there, nobody there near the cars. I presume they're out walking the ball fields or something, so.
Right.
Where the transfer station is, used to be the pole yard. Remember the pole yard? No?
Oh,
Telephone company put all their poles there. And everything, that's where the kids party. I mean, that's where they party. And they party up at the end of Wallingford Pond Road too, when that's open. But
Thanks.
when we put the transfer station in, they crashed into the gate and smashed it because they didn't like it. But if there's no crime going on,
Yeah,
I don't see.
if there's
They're gonna
nothing
park
like-
someplace, they're gonna
Yeah.
go up to Catholic Cemetery, they're gonna be someplace. I mean, what do we lose by letting people park there? What's the, you know? When you're a kid, that your car is your house.
I'm thinking not even just kids, just, I mean, people go and do stuff there for just active reasons, not bad things, just,
But, no, there's no crimes going on, right?
Well, I mean, they parked there probably, I'm not sure where they parked when they broke into the concession stand,
Right.
but
who's to say they parked anywhere? They
Yeah,
could have
they're
walked.
they could have walked. Right,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
know,
that's
but
it. We are a village. If, I mean, they could park on the street just
Yeah.
off to the side and it's
Yeah.
not gonna make much of a difference.
Yeah.
No.
If somebody
I think
wants to do
it's
something bad,
uninviting.
What stuff like this does is prevent those of us that want to use the facilities
Right.
in
But
positive
I also
ways.
think
Yeah.
it's unfriendly. Unfriendly,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
It would be different if maybe we had some more reasons on the why.
yeah.
And, cause then it also comes into the enforcement of it.
Sure.
Who can do that and who will do that?
Yeah.
We do not
Could
have,
you put-
people to do that.
Don't like to see cars there.
well, they get nervous because they don't know what the people are doing if there's nobody in the cars.
That's, yeah, but that's,
If somebody's gonna
What
commit a
would-
crime, they're gonna park illegally and do it.
What would happen if you put a sign that says no all-night parking? Not no parking after dark,
no
but no
overnight.
overnight parking.
Why?
I don't know, I just-
Why? I'm not for it, I'm not for it.
I think if we had data that said that we were seeing multiple things or we were finding evidence of any kind of intravenous drug use
What
kind
we're
of
saying
thing,
is that
like
we'd like to
that's,
see some data, and if the sheriff is recommending it, maybe they can give some more information
Why?
as to why.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Rutland City, they put benches out there, but when the street urchins sat there, they went, no, you can't sit here. No, I mean, I don't know what it's gonna gain us.
Okay, so, there we are. Moving on, select board comments, concerns? Anything else for that? No?
Forgot.
Okay.
I forgot, I'll remember next meeting.
Okay, so moving on to other business. Sandy has emailed, municipal committee chairs, road crews, zoning administrator, library, Wallingford Rescue nonprofit groups, constable, animal control, about the following fiscal year 26 budget schedule. So shall I say what the budget schedule is? Okay, for a capital, town government, public safety on December 2nd, 2024. Recreation, highway and appropriations on December 16th, and administration, insurance and revenue on January 6th, 2025. Reminder, tomorrow, Tuesday, November 5th, is election day. The town clerk and the treasurer's office were closed today and will be closed again tomorrow.
We had requested last year, and it didn't work very well, that, I don't know if it's worth asking again, but to have, I guess if a group, a committee or whatever is submitting a budget, rec committee, conservation, they're submitting a budget. I kind of like it early, but it didn't work, but I'd also like them here the night we're discussing it.
I know some places, some of the, groups did have representatives here the night of to
Right.
discuss.
But the ones that didn't, unfortunately, got some grumble that decisions were made that they didn't have a say in.
Well, I think we
So-
can say that if they bring someone who can represent what they're doing, they can then have their say.
Right. So that's
And
just,
so we encourage those that are in those meetings to be there at the meetings if at all possible.
a representative, yeah.
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 And
It
right
just-
now, we can recommend that. So duly noted.
Excellent.
Wait, but I just realized something, not concerned or comments, but just, I wanted to point out, Sandy, you sent the email the other day about the, erosion grant.
Yes.
Are we making that public? That's public, right?
The what?
About
We got the grant?
getting it, yeah.
Yeah, so we got the erosion grant
got the
for
erosion
Elfin
grant.
Lake, which is, I just wanted to point that out, that because that was a lot of work that went into that, and I wanted to make sure that was
So we
noted.
got the Elfin
Not
Lake
from me.
grant.
Shannon.
Yes, Shannon.
Yes, so.
Shannon
It
did a lot.
But just really amazing that we got that, and it's gonna
It
be
is.
wonderful for the beach.
is, and congratulations to the
Thank you for bringing that up.
recognition.
I thought
It's a
about
town.
mentioning it earlier and I forgot.
Thank you, Justin, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
That was good. Okay, we are at the end of our agenda this evening.
There's one thing, from Samantha McPhail,
Yeah.
have we dealt with that yet?
No, it's just starting.
Huh?
It's just starting.
Okay. So were we supposed to take action on this tonight?
Well, I asked her when the meeting is and she hasn't responded yet.
Oh,
So, I mean, I'm happy to write the letter if you'd like me to.
Yeah.
What the impact is on,
I mean,
Okay.
I'm the one that brought this up and I'm not afraid.
well, if you'd like to write the letter, that'd be fine
Huh?
too.
Well, you do it much better.
Okay,
All right, I'll write something.
Yeah. But I would be willing to go and meet with
Okay,
the
Alright.
person
all right, that's great.
You know.
Thank you, Rob.
great. Okay,
and whatever
Huh?
work he's gonna do or did.
lovely.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
entertaining a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
I'll second that.
Adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.